Congressman Byron Donald is joining us right now on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. His Thursday visit with us, and we do appreciate it. How are you this morning, my friend?
Doing good, Drew. Good morning.
You haven't heard anything, right, about Congressman Steele? I mean, we're still waiting for some updates, but I know that obviously we're all concerned and just waiting to find out some more. And he's listen, he's tough, so we are certainly praying for his recovery, no doubt.
No, actually, what you just said is what I know. Obviously, it's still really early. The piece of information I had was that he was awake in the ambulance on the way to the hospital.
Okay.
So, or he was awake. He wasn't unconscious, and so that's it's a good thing. But it is a good thing. But right now, just really just waiting for his team and his family to decide when they're gonna let everybody else know about what's happening. But there's a lot of prayers up for him right now. Stubby's he's a really good guy, good friend. So we just want him to make a speedy recovery.
Yeah.
But as of now, we just don't know.
Right. Okay. Well, as we get more information, we certainly will get it to all of you right here on 92.5 Fox News, and we keep an eye on this story throughout the morning. Another story we're keeping an eye on is $1 trillion platinum coins. What a great way to solve the deficit issue and the debt ceilings. Why not just print some more, make some clever trillion? I mean, we're really talking about some of the most ridiculous, far out things when it comes to this showdown. But yet, I'm still waiting for people to talk about stopping the spending, cutting. I mean, well, I do hear some. I don't hear Democrats talking about that, but the media is focused on the doom and gloom. What about the latest right now with this, with the federal debt ceiling?
Well, right now the latest is the Democrats, like has been widely reported, want to put their heads in the sand, and their goal is just to continue everything as usual and just raise the debt ceiling. House Republicans, that is not our position, and frankly, it's not going to be our position. We're going to want to see reductions in spending. And to give people an idea, a lot of what came out of Speaker McCarthy's election was this move to 22 spending caps, the 2022 spending cap levels. Mm-hmm. But you can make that happen and still take care of defense spending, which obviously we need. But in order to do that, what you really need to do is go back to the pre-COVID-19 non-defense discretionary levels. Before we started creating every program under the sun, whether needed or not, to provide massive amounts of spending to help citizens get through COVID-19. Well, listen, COVID-19 is over. So we should be getting rid of all of that spending. It's just simply not needed anymore. Like, why would we raise a debt ceiling to keep that stuff going when it was specifically designed for the pandemic? So that's stuff that you can do credibly.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm pushing for, I got to see what the rest of my colleagues are, is that we need Joe Biden to secure the border. Like, if you want to extend the debt ceiling, which is basically borrowing more money to pay for the Department of Homeland Security and other departments, because that's what raising the debt ceiling means. If you're going to raise the debt ceiling so you can continue to spend more money, then we actually should be borrowing money to actually do the job of securing the homeland, not spending money to not secure the homeland. Yeah. That's stuff that I think we should be doing as a part of this. But it's very early in these negotiations. The reason why Janet Yellen said, hey, the debt ceiling's Thursday, but we can do stuff to keep it kind of running until June, is to kind of give space, in my opinion, give space for the negotiations, but there are going to be negotiations. It's not going to be this, we're not changing anything, we're going to do the $1 trillion coin. Whoever floated that idea, they need to go search the Weimar Republic and figure out what they did, because printing more money does not help you solve debt issues and inflation issues. It only makes them worse.
Right. I might say this and get your thoughts on it. They're not dummies. They know. They have people on staff, or maybe they know themselves, the history of things like $1 trillion coins, the idea of super premium bonds or whatever they're coming up with, some of these other things, remedies I'm trying to think of some of the other crazy things that have coming up. Somebody talked about invoking the 14th Amendment and Section 4 of the amendment and all of these different things. But they're not dummies. They know the same things that you know. So then it begs the question: if you know all of this, then it has to do with the bottom line, which is they're afraid to go back to their constituents and say that we're cutting spending, which the cutting, quote unquote, isn't really cutting. And you've mentioned that before. It's not even cutting. It's like capping. It's like, can we just at least stop some of what we've been doing? And this idea that we're not going to fund them. Of course, we're going to fund the military. To what degree? Can we get an accounting? Can we see of what is needed? I mean, it's okay to question some of what spending is out there in places that traditionally have been the focus of Republicans, let's just say, and how it's always about, blank checks. It doesn't have to be anymore, especially in these conditions, considering where we are with the spending. So, on the Democrat side, I always worry about what that negotiation is going to look like, because where you will present something very reasonable and rational, they'll say, they're shutting down the government. They don't want your grandparents getting checks. You see what I'm saying? They're going to demagogue the issue and scare the life out of people. And that's their tactic. You're prepared for that, right?
Yeah, we are. And so look, a couple things. One, it's very different between the liberal mind and the conservative mind. The conservative mind actually examines history and says, hey, this didn't work before. What makes us think it's going to work again? The liberal mind says, oh, no, we know what happened in the past, but we're in charge now, and we can do different things so that the results don't happen. That typically has not worked out when liberal policy takes effect. It actually ends up playing out like we thought. And so the difference is now in modern politics, Democrats can't be on the record supporting spending cuts because they have fought it so vehemently for so many years. They've boxed themselves into a political corner. So if they're seen now as saying, hey, the responsible thing is to cut domestic spending and the non-defense discretionary spending, and the American people still operate in their normal lives and nothing fundamentally wrong happens except that, inflation starts to wane, we have a better healthy financial picture going forward. If they agree to that, it undercuts a big part of their political argument the last 20 years. And so this is the stopgaps that I think are going to form up. It's really about political dogma, not about reality. And the reality is we do have to cut spending. Everybody needs to get that out their mind. If you think that we can just spend whatever we want without consequence, the inflation that was created by Joe Biden is reason number one why that is not true.
Congressman Byron Donald is joining us on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. So many things I want to talk to you about this morning, but I kind of wanted to go into this area because I think it's so important and something that we have talked about many, many times, education, not only in the state, but across the country. And, the governor yesterday rejecting a bid from the College Board to approve this new African-American studies curriculum. He's concerned about it violating what is the Stop Woke Act and some of what is in there. And I bring this up because, again, you have to step into that space when you're talking about things like education and say, look, we are examining everything. We are worried about what certain people are trying to bring to states and even federally. When it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then one of the big stories about equity this week about the Virginia schools that started out as 1, turned into 3, and now is 16 that admitted to withholding merit awards for students in the name of equity. So if you care about, now I bring this up and I want you to comment on this because if you're listening there and you're saying, well, this is a Virginia story, it's not a state story. No, it is. Because ask yourself, if there's a DEI office at any of your schools in Southwest Florida, ask yourself if equity is brought up at all in schools. And then understand that this story has to do with that. There are people who will want this to be the case in Florida just as much as they want it nationally. So talk about this story and your thoughts on this, because to me, it's like I couldn't believe this story. I still can't.
Well, first to the college course on African American studies, I think the way this is being reported is actually not to the benefit of what the governor's trying to do, because the way the media is portraying it is that he's trying to strip African American studies out of the university system. No, this is about a specific course
right.
in the genre, if you will, of African American studies. And so they're reviewing these courses and saying, wait a minute, we're not going to allow state dollars to go towards that. So no, that's a good thing. There are many courses in African American studies. If I remember correctly, I took one when I was in college, which is about factual history that is important to know and understand and have in-depth knowledge of. Nothing wrong with that. But if you have one that is basically created out of these DEI think tanks that are all over the country, they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this stuff, then that's wrong. You don't want that at the college level. I'm sorry. I know there's people in the black community who disagree with me, but hey, that's why we're individual people. We
right,
can have those conversations.
And to your point, there are people that are spinning it as, you see, they don't want to teach about race. They don't want to talk about our history. No, that's not the case. They're spinning.
That's what it is. There are plenty of courses, and this is where, if the governor, in my opinion, what he should do around this is explain very clearly all of the courses that are available under African American studies. There are many great courses that are available under African American studies, but that this course, and lay out specifically why this course is being challenged. That being said, what's happening in Virginia is something that's been happening around the country. It's just blown up in Virginia. There is a move that has been going on. It goes back to these diversity, equity, and inclusion seminars that have been happening with the teachers' unions at the AFT and the NEA, with the school board members associations around the country, with the superintendent associations around the country, where you have these DEI breakout sessions at all of their conferences. They are being told this stuff for years now. And now you're seeing the policy start to implement itself in Virginia. And I would argue, if you start digging into this, it's not just Virginia. It's other places around the country. It's wrong. They asked me on Fox News yesterday, and just to be blunt, this is not going to help black kids. All this DEI stuff is to help, equality or help equity with black people in the United States. Holding down Asian American students who've done the job of working hard at reading, writing, and arithmetic, and holding them back so black kids can get ahead is wrong. And it's not going to help black kids. It just doesn't. Here's why I say that. The thing that people need to be successful as adults is that you've had to work hard as a kid. You've had to cut your teeth somewhere. You've had to fail somewhere and learn from mistakes and learn from failure, and that's how you grow to be successful. But if you shield kids from never having to deal with the consequences of not being good enough or not working hard enough, then they're not prepared to go into the working world and be effective people, either working for a small business or building one for themselves. I have talked to too many small business owners and business owners in the last 5 years. And the number one thing they're concerned about is the work ethic of kids coming into the workforce as adults, because they're not being challenged by the education establishment, and they're not ready to do the hard things necessary to be successful. Every business owner is dealing with it right now. The core of it is crap like this that's going on in Virginia.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that people, well, it's not hard to believe that it's happening because
Drew, hold on, and not to cut you off.
Yeah.
I raise black kids because the essence of it is this equity component from the DEI people for black people to have equitable stakes in America's economy and what America produces. So that's the genesis of this. The byproduct of this is that now you have white kids who are not being prepared and challenged to be successful. You have Hispanic kids who are not being prepared to be challenged and be successful, and black kids who are not being challenged to be successful. It's going to hurt the future of America if stuff like this continues.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, like I was saying, the fact that this has been developing, it's been out there for a long time. Many people have been on top of these issues and what's the big deal with DEI? What's the problem? Now you're starting to see it come to fruition. Now you start to see it in practice, and then you start to see the harm that is doing. And to your point, it's the bigger issue of our kids and raising our kids and what our future in this country is going to look like, and the successes that we need to have to get out of situations that we're in right now, like issues on the federal level of inflations and debt ceilings and that, and also the creation of what will be look, you got all these people that are over there at the WEF, and they're talking about the boiling of oceans and the climate's changing and all of these things, and not saying, hey, you know what? We need to have a generation that is growing up right now that is prepared to make sustainable, cheap alternatives, sustainable and cheap. It is possible, but it's not going to be possible if we're not giving everyone that is available the ability to not only learn, but to create and to have an education that will get us to that place where we'll be able to create these sustainable and cheap options that other countries will be able to use to get us away from what is the issues of fossil fuels and what the left and some radicals are concerned about. Does that make sense? Do you see where I'm going with this?
No, that's totally correct. And this is the issue. There's like a reel going on through social media right now. It's pretty funny, but it talks about TikTok. And it talks about what China, because TikTok is run by China. Let's be clear, folks. Right. If you have TikTok, you should get rid of it. It is run by China. That being said, the issue is that TikTok in China, they don't let their kids view people grinding and doing funny things. And that's not rewarded in China. What's rewarded in China for the kids on TikTok is people excelling in science, in math, in industry. But in the United States, the algorithm is different. China has no problem with our kids watching people being funny or being influencers and all that stuff because they want our children to value being an influencer, whatever the heck that means, versus actually having substantive impacts on our country in terms of reading, writing, arithmetic, science, engineering, etc. The things that our country is going to need to be successful going forward. And these people who believe in equity, and look, when I say diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that's what they call the space, and it's all basically it is the culmination of critical race theory. That's what DEI has become, right? The equity piece is the problem, because if the supposition is that everybody has to have an equal outcome, then you get rid of the merit system. You get rid of people having to work hard, having to actually apply themselves, having to figure out what they're good at. And an economy and a nation needs individuals to be doing their level best at their strengths. That's how all this works. And the left believes that they can just create it with government policy and spending. It's just not true, because the work has to be done on the individual level. Yeah. Short-circuiting that process will short-circuit America.
Yeah. All right, I'm looking at the time we got to run. I know you do. I always appreciate a few minutes of your time, and we'll see you next week. All right, all the best. See you soon.
All right, see you, Drew.
Thanks. All right, 239-479-5592.